Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome the back. I know you clicked on this video not for the thumbnail, but because you want to be a better For Honor player, so let's get right to it. And I know exactly what you're thinking.
Who do you think you are? I am! Get it right!
And yes, you're probably him, but I do have some hours on this game myself. Just a little bit. Also, I have been playing since beta, not closed beta. That was mostly just YouTubers. Some of y'all don't know there was a closed beta, but there was. But anyways, let's get right to it. So the first thing you want to do before you get into any game mode or start doing whatever it is you think you're going to be doing is you want to go to your settings. In order to do that, you have to press start. There's nothing here that there's no way here to go to your settings, so you might be confused at first. You do have to press start in order to get to the settings menu, and then go over, press R1 over to options. Here you'll have the controls. I usually don't suggest changing any control settings unless you feel more comfortable to. Now the biggest thing we'll be looking at here is actually going to be advanced controls. So your fight controls tuning. This is going to be huge for you, and it's actually going to depend on each person and what you feel comfortable with. You may see some people who won't touch any of these settings at all, but I think that's a huge mistake. Tune these to how you feel comfortable. Some people will like to put guard mode down to 0. I find that this gives me, well, two things happen. Sometimes I'll get stick drift, or I'll change directions. I'll change my guard direction, and we'll talk about guard direction later, but I'll change my guard direction on accident, and you never want that to happen, and that's why the dead zone is sometimes good. The rotate widget do based off you. I notice sometimes when I go up for my guard, I go a little bit up and to the right, so I like to have it just a little bit skewed to the right because I like to have my side guard still full. So just kind of really focus this down onto what feels good to you, and a lot of this can be done, or a lot of practice for this can be done in the practice game mode, and you can kind of feel what feels right for you there before you go online and get shat on because you change these settings. So the next thing I want to talk about is the mechanics of For Honor. For Honor has some similar mechanics to fighting games that you'll see. It does have what you call attack strings, right? So you might have a light and a heavy, and then I can't really do anything after that until a couple of seconds. You see how those attacks string together, or I do light, right? And they string together, but I can't do light, and then heavy, right? I press heavy and it takes a little while for the attack to come through, and that's because it's not part of one of Warlord's attack strings. Okay, and that kind of takes us into how For Honor plays. It used to play as a reaction-based game, so you would basically have to react to the lights or the heavies as they came at you. However, people got basically really good at this. And Adderall addicted 14-year-olds can parry your lights all day long, so it became more of a read-based game. Now you have to make reads. So the way that For Honor implements read-based gameplay is through their bashes, which we'll get into in a second. But now you'll have to read if I'm going to go into a feint or go into a bash, and again we'll get into those a little bit more in depth in a second here. Another thing that you'll find similar to fighting games in For Honor is the frame data. So you can't put up frame data like you can on some of the other fighting games. You kind of have to look it up and know what it is, but you're going to be dealing with it a lot. You're going to want to know how fast this bash is, how fast this guard break is, things like that, how fast this heavy is it 400 milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, you know what I mean, how fast the lights are, and things of that nature. So you're definitely dealing with frame data just like you would any other fighting game. It's just implemented in a little bit different way. So you can see how it would still be important to know whether or not Warlord has a light, heavy, and whether or not you can then interrupt him after that move, just like you would in the other fighting game. However, the first difference that you'll notice in For Honor is the tri-level blocking system. This is a patented system, if I'm not mistaken, that allows you to that allows the user to block one of three ways. You have your side, top, and left guard, and as a general rule of thumb, you want to keep your guard on the side that the opponent is on, so they don't just hit you with a random light like that, right? Another big difference that you'll see in For Honor is kind of what I talked about before, is the bashes. This is kind of your mix-up bread and butter. This is kind of how you'll get into or open up your opponent's guard. So if your opponent is just kind of guarding everything you do and you just can't get through their guard, you bash and get a free hit. Another thing that you'll find different about For Honor is the guard break system. This system is extremely important, and it goes into things like revenge, which we'll talk about later. But it's one way that you open up your opponent. As you can see, there was no way that they could guard there. I guess I could make him guard top, but alright, so it'll probably be better to show you with Orochi, because he can get a side heavy from the guard break. So you see here, as I cannot get an attack in, because they're guarding that way. If we guard break and then attack, it goes through, and there's nothing they can do about it. So that's kind of the differences that you're going to see between For Honor and a regular fighting game. And these are important differences because these are going to be basically your basis of how you play the game and how you get in offense, either in a 1v1 or a 4v4 game mode. Now, something you'll notice here with Orochi in particular is my guard dissipates, right? I hate this, but in all assassin characters, this is just something to keep in mind. The guard will go away. It's called a reflex guard, and basically to reset it, you just go off of it and go back. What this means is that if you can time it correctly, you can inevitably hit an assassin's guard regardless of what they do, because they can go back super fast, but they still have a delay between going back and switching their guard. And as long as you can time that correctly, you will hit them. I've done it 100 times. So another difference between For Honor and other video games or other fighting games is going to be the 4v4 game modes and the ganks, as well as revenge. So revenge and ganking is actually something I want to go in depth on, and I would actually like to go over a video with you. Alright, so I found a perfect clip to kind of go over revenge. This is a clip that from one of my earlier videos where I was kind of suspect about the warden, but when I took a closer look at it, I seen that I was pretty much just feeding him revenge, and so was my partner. So I'll take the L on that. I don't care. It is what it is, but let's take a closer look at kind of what happened here. So we finished his partner, and one thing that I have to mention before we go through all of this is the revenge system and how it works. So the revenge system works on a tag system. Each person starts off with 0 tags, and if you get hit, bashed, or even some of the perks will give you a tag. I think if not all of the perks will give you a tag, as long as it affects you in some way. Perks that boost people's attack and defense and things like that will not give a tag. There is a more in-depth video if you want to check out Freeze's video. I'll put it in the description where he goes over some of this, but what I'm going to do here is explain kind of what he goes over because it's a little bit hard to understand the way he explains it. So I want to explain it with an example for you here. So the tag system, going back to that, is basically each person is going to start off with 0 tags. You only get a tag, as I said before, from getting hit, bashed, or guard broken. Even if it bounces or you guard break parry, you still get the tag and the revenge that it feeds. And the tags all last 5 seconds. So if you want to kind of time that, you can. Now let's kind of take a look at what that means here. So we see here our warden come up. They attack first, or they feint their attack rather, which does not give them the tag. Neither does this parry. At this point, this warden still does not have a tag on them, but the Magi does. Now they have a tag. The Magi goes for their grab, they dodge. Notice how it doesn't feed revenge. Notice how that grab didn't feed revenge, even though the Magi does not have a tag and they do now. That's because the revenge feeding has to come from the second tag, right? The revenge feeding has to come from the second tag, and then the person who gives the full revenge has to come from the first or the third tag, right? So basically, if I come in and I tag them right now, I cannot give them full revenge. They'll never get it if I'm the only one who attacks them after this because I was the second tag. Conversely, if only Magi attacked here, obviously, they would not get the revenge because there was never a second tag applied, right? So now this person has 2 tags, they're getting double teamed, and now they're starting to get the revenge. The attack that I give them is an unblockable, which usually feeds around 25% or so of the revenge, which you can see it doing here. They then get attacked by the Magi, right there. He gives them a heavy, which gives them more revenge. I believe it's 25%, but the amount of revenge that is gained varies based upon the move and the amount of base attack damage it does. Obviously, Magi's heavies do a shit ton of damage, so it did a lot more revenge. As we continue here, we get up. They now still have 2 tags, right? I hit them, they parry, they gain the revenge, as you can see there. That was a hell of a parry, god damn, and then I get hit by my teammate by a heavy. Now that dodge that they did, as you can see, did not gain them revenge. Even though the Magi was locked onto them, they still did not gain revenge from that. The reason is, when it comes to dodging, revenge gain is a little bit fickle. You pretty much can only get it during your iframes. So there are a lot of different frames that you can still dodge an attack and not be in your iframes, but the only time you'll get revenge is when you're in those iframes. But they followed that up with another parry on the Magi, so they just had God defense, which gives them more revenge, and then I come in like an idiot and feed them the last thing that they need. I just wasn't expecting them to parry the Magi's attack, so that is what it is. So Warden pops the revenge here, and one thing that's important to note is they remain, or their tags remain during the revenge, and they do restart during revenge if you continue to hit them. So I hit them there, they get a tag that restarts. They shouldn't have a tag from Magi, but then Magi comes in and gives them that tag back, right? So now they have 2 tags again, restarted at 5 seconds. Again, 2 tags restarted at 5 seconds, and their revenge is almost up. This is why it's not a good idea usually to hit a person right at the end of their revenge in a gank situation. In a 2v2 at least, really in most situations, because as you can see there, as soon as they came out of revenge, even though Magi is on the ground and he's no longer hitting them, they still have 2 tags, which means my hit gives them revenge. And since it's a bash like it was before, it's pretty much 25% followed by my heavy, which gives them a little bit more revenge, right? My guard break, so they still have the tag at this point, but it's technically, I mean, it's not a 1v1, but I've been only fighting them by myself, right? So I'm technically still feeding revenge. Now Magi gets up, his tag should be pretty much gone by now, so any of my attacks shouldn't feed revenge, but there goes Magi with the tag, right? So now he has his tags back. Obviously my tags never went away because I've been attacking him this entire time, and then boom, wouldn't you know it, he gets revenge again. And it's the same deal here, right? They continue, they get the 3rd tag. Now they have 3 tags, right? So that's insane. They have 3 tags that they're working with. And if you don't know this, the more tags you have, the more revenge you'll get. So if you're outnumbered by 3 people, you'll get more revenge. If you're outnumbered by 2 people, you'll get less revenge. Again, the details are on Freeze's video down below. But this video is kind of why it's important to know how to gank and when to gank. Obviously in this video I didn't do too good of a job of ganking, but it's really hard to do when you don't know when your teammate is going to attack, what attack they're going to do, and things of that nature, right? So obviously ganking is something that you'll be much better with teammates doing. This is why you see a lot of people wanting to have a friend online when they're going on 4v4s. This is why you'll see most of the top players will never play a 4v4 without friends or people that they've practiced with for an extensive amount of time, because of the ganking system and the revenge system and how it works after it was reworked. Because it didn't used to be like this. You used to actually get revenge from a 1v1. Interestingly enough, you couldn't pop revenge, if I remember correctly. Like, it wouldn't give you the full revenge from a 1v1, but you could still gain revenge from it. Which was insane. You even used to be able to gain revenge from minions, so you'd be able to go sit in the mid lane, gain revenge, and then pop it. It was insane. Good times. Anyways, let's move on with the video. Alright, next thing I want to talk about is duels. Duels. I know it's boring to wait for a duel just to have somebody light spam you to death, but they are so important. This is where you will find out the matchmaking that we talked about earlier. This is where you'll find out people's attack strings, when they're vulnerable, when you can attack back, how fast their attacks are, how easy they are to parry, and so on and so forth. There's just so much you can learn from 1v1s. Do not take it for granted. I know it sucks, but honestly, this was the only game mode that I played when I first started. I didn't play anything else because I had this bravado of like, this is the true way to show your true strength. You can only be good at 1v1s. That's the only way to be good at the game, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, you know, you learn more, and you learn that there are different aspects to the 4v4s. And you learn that ganking, just as I showed you just now, and revenge have a whole deep system to them, and it takes a lot of skill to be good at them. But none of that matters if you do not know how to 1v1, because you will get smoked every single time you're trying to defend. Or what if they just don't gank you? What if that person just stands there on the side and just decides to, you know, sit there and watch you guys 1v1? It happens all the time in 4v game modes, and if you're not prepared, you're gonna get your ass kicked. You'd be like, oh, I'm good at 4v4s, but you can't 1v1, so what's the point? So go in there, get some time in. As you can see right there at the bottom, I have quite a bit of duel matches. Obviously nowhere near the amount that I have in objective game modes and things of that nature, but we definitely have quite a few duels under our belt. So make sure you go in there. I definitely need to go in there myself and get some training going. But yes, it's important. Speaking of training, complete the hero tactics, complete the tutorial, complete all of these things. Oh, how is mine not completed? Oh, practice Dominion match. That must be new. I don't think they had that before. Anyways, make sure you go into these and practice all of these, because the hero tactics teach you how to play each character, and they'll teach you kind of how you want to mix up with each character, right? So make sure you go in there, do the hero tactics, but more importantly, do a training arena. I know a lot of people are like, don't practice, it doesn't matter, because the online game doesn't feel the same as it does when you're in local play, and that's 100% true. But you can still work on your reaction timings. If you go in there and you fight a level 3 bot for, 2 or 3 hours, yeah, you're gonna get smoked at first, but eventually you're going to start learning what that bot does, and I guarantee you, if you take those same things and go into an online match, you will destroy most of these people online, because most people online cannot beat a level 3 bot, period. Okay, so go and practice against a level 3 bot, practice your parries, put it to where you can't die, and just sit there and fight him for an hour or whatever it takes to practice.
Practice? It's not the game. We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game.
Yes, practice. And I know some of you are like, hey, I can just practice 1v1s in a 4v4 scenario. No, you cannot do that. It's not consistent enough. You will die, and once you die, you go all the way back to the beginning, and you cannot guarantee that you'll be able to fight that person again. They may die, right? And then you guys are on a cycle of not seeing each other, because you have 3 other teammates, they have 3 other teammates, and you just may practice against someone else. But that means that you're not getting the practice that you need in with that one character, right? Or, they completely destroyed you, but now you don't go back and face them in that 1v1 again to learn what they were doing so that you can now counter it. You're with a different person now. And do not be those people who sit there and fucking wait for a 1v1 in a 4v4 matchup, especially at the beginning of a fucking Dominion match. Do not do it. This is not 1v1s. Take your fucking asses to 1v1s or one of the other game modes. I hate when people sit there and watch 1v1s in a Dominion match, especially if it's at the beginning. Now, if it's at the end, it's the last person, they're on their last leg, and you're like, hey, give them a 1v1 because they won't win regardless. Okay, cool. Let them have a little Iron Man match, and that's cool. But do not fucking be that guy. All right, so now I think is a good time to talk about game modes. This is where you will find the different game modes. You have Battle, which is usually going to be your Dominion, and then Tribute, which is what the fuck is that? And then Deathmatch, and we'll talk about those in a second. You have Breach, which is what it sounds like, Breach. I have videos on my channel of what that is and how to play it if you want to go through those and kind of check them out. This is my favorite game mode by far because of how visceral it is. You have to think a lot. Every decision matters, but it does take a long time to do. So I understand why a lot of people are not into it that much. Duel is kind of what I said it was, right? This is where your sweats go, and this is where you're going to go to practice every now and then. You don't have to do it even every day, but every now and then go to duels, get some practice in. And I don't mean versus bots. You know who you are. Next, we have ranked. Not really anyone plays ranked because they don't have good ranked rewards, and there's no reason to do it because you cannot see your ranked tier while you're playing Dominion. So no one will be able to know that you're like diamond ranked while you're playing Dominion. It will not matter. Next, you have 2v2 brawls. Honestly, this is for people who like to get on For Honor with their friends but don't like to play in the 4v4 game mode. This actually has a lot of people in it, and it has a lot of nuance when you're doing 2v2s, because if you do it right, you won't feed any revenge. If you do it wrong, obviously the other teammate gets revenge based off what I just told you. So there are ways to do this right, and the people who do are really fucking good at 2vs, and I feel like there should be a 2v2 competition because it's really nuanced, but I don't play it myself because I don't have any friends. All right, last but definitely not least, we have our battle game modes. So We have Deathmatch, Tribute, and Dominion. Alrighty, and starting with Deathmatch. Deathmatch is composed of 2 different game modes. These used to be separated, but because I guess it separated the fan base too much, they put them both into one. And because of this, these are the only 2 game modes in 4v4s where I would say it's acceptable for everyone to do 4 1v1s. Because you don't know if you're getting a skirmish, which is supposed to be everyone fighting everyone, or an elimination mode, which is supposed to be just as it sounds, elimination, you fight the person, you fight the next person. Because you can't pick between those, this is the only game mode where I'd say it's acceptable to do 4 1v1s if you really want to. But that said, if the other team starts ganking and doing those things, you're going to have to respond, right? So that is what it is. Still a fun game mode, but obviously has low activity. Not a lot of people play it. Tribute, what the fuck is Tribute? And then you have Big Daddy Dominion. This is this game's bread and butter. This is its main game mode. As you can see, very high activity. This is the game mode that people play the most and what most tier list and most competitive scenes are based off of, just because it's what people find most entertaining. This is the main difference between For Honor and most other fighting games, is that the 4v4 game mode is the most popular, and most other fighting games don't even have a 4v4 game mode. And if they did, it would still probably be the 1v1 that is most popular, right? I don't think I've ever seen a fighting game that had a more than 1 person game mode that was super popular. Now, which one do you pick? Honestly, pick whatever you want. Obviously, they all have their ups and downs. My favorite game mode, as I said, is Breach. You have to wait a tiny bit longer to get a match, and the matches are a little bit longer, so I can understand why people don't like it, but it does give you a large amount of rewards and experience. So if you're wanting to grind experience, it's not a bad way, but the best way by far is probably going to be Dominion. Dominion has the quickest wait time, and it gives you a decent amount of experience. So there aren't going to be long wait times in between, which inevitably is going to give you more rep per minute, I guess you can say. But if you're just playing to have fun, honestly, play whatever game mode you want. Don't take it too seriously. It's a game. Now we come to my favorite part. Which characters to choose. That's definitely going to be determined on what you like. I will say though, any of the Vanguard characters are the easier characters to pick up at first, and they're easiest to play and get good with in Dominion. A couple of them though do need buffs in my opinion. Raider is decent, but his stunning tap, I don't know why, once you get to the higher levels, it's completely trash. However, I would call him a noob stomper 100%. That storming tap is extremely quick to people who are new. His hyper armor is really good for them trying to get through your attacks, and I feel like he's one of the easier characters to pick up because he has easy access into all of the things that you want to do, that being the bashes and the unblockables. Right now, Valkyrie's really good. If you want to pick up a character that's just press R1 multiple times and doesn't have much to do, she's definitely your girl. However, she does and can go in depth. So it's one of the characters where you can spam, but if you get good with her, you can do a lot of good things. Who are the meta characters? In my opinion, the one I just mentioned, Valkyrie. You have Black Prior, you have JJ, and you have Shigoki. Shigoki is definitely a turn off your brain, press R1 and R2 as many times as you can character. This is a decent character if you're feeling like you've been getting beat up a lot and you're like, man, f this game. Pick up Shigoki and you will absolutely destroy people. And we can't forget about the toxic weeb pick Orochi. Of course, if you're looking to light spam, if you're looking to have an answer to everything, if you're looking to spam people with kicks and bashes and do whatever you want and then emote spam right afterwards, this is your character. Any person who tells you otherwise just hates that they got light spammed by Orochi. But once you get into the higher tiers, don't think that that's going to do you any good, because people can parry in those higher tiers. So don't get too comfortable with light spam with any of these characters, okay? And now that we're talking about light spam, that's definitely something that's going to be a practice thing. You're definitely going to want to go into those 1v1 game modes and practice blocking it first. It's going to be the easiest thing to do, and again, your settings are going to have something to do with that. Do new gen and console have a bit of an advantage? Yes, but it's not one that the human eye can even, I think, detect, because I spent most of my career on last gen For Honor. All of these reps that you see here, except for probably like 10 or 15 of them, were on last gen, and I was parrying lights like nobody's business, and still do. So as long as you kind of have to predict them now, but I don't see that there's a clear huge advantage. As long as you're doing the practice and taking the time it needs to learn how fast the lights are, you'll be able to at least block them. And that's what you should focus on at first. Don't worry about parrying lights, that'll come with time. Block, just block. And another thing I want to talk about when it comes to character selection is their feats. A lot of people don't go into this, but feats are huge. And one person that I like to point out when it comes to feats is definitely JJ. He has pretty much all of the best feats in the game. Any feat that gives you some amount of health is really good. Second Wind is one of the best feats in the game, if not the best feat in the game. Don't at me. As well as Fire Flash. And he has both. Right, and then he has even in some of his lower tiers, like you can really pick any of these. Those are kind of trash, but you can really pick any of these and they'd be good. Speed Revive is okay, Deadly's pretty good, but one of the biggest, I think, underrated feats that you'll ever see is going to be Fear itself. So a few people have Fear itself, but it absolutely melts people. So it lowers their defense and it does not give them a tag. This is huge because, as you've seen before, giving people a tag is a bad thing, but just being around without ever hitting them gives you the advantage because you're lowering their defense, which makes your teammates do more attack. So anything that does more attack and lowers defense is going to be a good hit for you. Any of these other things, Bear Trap will give a tag, Storming Trap will give a tag. So anything that hits them for any amount of damage or does any type of effects to the other person will give them a tag in a 2v2. So just something to keep in mind when picking a character. And that is pretty much going to be it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed, please leave a like. Consider subscribing to help me reach my 1,000 subscriber goal. Other than that, stay safe. Be blessed, and I'm out.